What happens when you pull off the greatest victory of your life, only to find yourself completely consumed by doubt the second you're alone? Well, today we're diving right into that exact moment in the life of the prophet Abraham. It's this incredible crisis that shows you the deep, deep conflict between what the world sees and what's really going on inside. So let's paint the picture. Abraham has just done something impossible. Here's this man of peace who leads a tiny force against these powerful regional kings and wins. He actually rescues his nephew, Lot. It was a military victory that should never have happened. And after the battle, he's the hero of the hour. He's showered with praise, kings are honoring his courage, and he gets this profound blessing from Melchizedek, the high priest. From the outside looking in, Abraham is at the absolute peak of his life. And yet, back in the silence of his own tent, that success didn't bring any peace. Instead, it brought this deep, gnawing anxiety. And this, right here, is where the real story begins. Not on the battlefield, but inside the mind of a man alone with his fears. Okay, so let's get into it. The story picks up right after the battle, and immediately, Abraham's character gets put to the test. And we see right away what this man is really made of. And right off the bat, you see this huge fork in the road. The king of Sodom, the city of sin, offers Abraham all the spoils of war. But Abraham just flat out refuses. He sees Sodom as a tainted source and wants absolutely nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, his nephew Lot, the guy he just risked everything to save, what does he do? He goes right back to Sodom. He just can't resist the infatuating attraction of city life, even though it nearly got him killed. It's just, wow. Two men, same experience, totally different paths. But saying no to some treasure? That wasn't Abraham's real battle. The story now zooms in, moving away from the world of kings and victories and right into Abraham's head, where his greatest struggle was just getting started. So this is the big question, right? You'd think he'd be on top of the world. He just proved his strength. He was literally blessed by God's own high priest. So what in the world could possibly be eating away at him? And there it is. That's the core of it. In this raw, honest plea to God, he basically says, all these promises of land and a great nation, what good are they? I'm childless. He lays out his biggest fear. The man set to inherit everything he owns is just his household steward, Eliezer of Damascus. The promise felt totally empty. And this wasn't some strange idea back then. It was actually a common custom. If you were wealthy and had no kids, your main servant could legally become your heir. So Abraham had a succession plan. But he knew deep down that this legal loophole was not the same as the divine promise he'd been given for a son of his own blood. So in this moment of just total doubt, something incredible happens. God responds. And he doesn't just give him some comforting words. He gives him a vision that will change everything. God's response is so immediate and so direct. He addresses Abraham's specific fear about Eliezer and says, point blank, nope, he won't be your heir. A son from your own body will be your heir. It's about as personal and direct a reassurance as you can get. And then this happens. This breathtaking moment. God takes him outside his tent, points to the night sky, and says, look up. Try to count the stars. Go on, try. Of course, it's impossible. And then God says, that's how many descendants you will have. He just turned this abstract promise into something infinite, something Abraham could literally see. So what did Abraham do? He just believed. That's it. He had no idea how it would happen or when, but the promise was enough. And that simple act of trust, with absolutely no proof, was seen as his greatest quality. So Abraham's faith is renewed, and right away, things get even more serious. The promise is about to become a covenant, a formal binding pact. But it comes with a twist, a dark and pretty startling look into the future. As the sun goes down, this horror of great darkness falls over Abraham. It's a terrifying vision, and in it, God reveals that the path to fulfilling this grand promise is not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to come at a huge cost for his future family. The prophecy lays out this long, difficult road. First, his descendants would end up as foreigners in another land. We now know this means Egypt. Second, they would be enslaved and mistreated there for 400 years. But there was hope baked into the prophecy too.
God promised that he would judge the nation that enslaved them. And finally, his people would be freed and they would come back to Canaan with great substance.
And even with that heavy, dark prophecy hanging in the air, God formalizes the deal right then and there. He makes it a covenant, clearly defining the massive borders of the land that would one day belong to Abraham's countless descendants. The promise was now officially a sealed pact. But here's the thing about prophecies. They're often for the distant future. And the story snaps right back to the here and now, to the human level. Because, let's be honest, having a divine promise is one thing, but actually waiting for it to happen, that's the hardest part. A full decade, 10 years had passed since Abraham first got to Canaan. 10 years of waking up every day, waiting for this promise to come true. You can just imagine the pressure that puts on a family, especially on his wife Sarai. And Sarai is she's had enough. She feels totally discouraged, convinced that God himself has restrained her from having kids. So she comes up with a plan, a very human plan. She tells Abraham to have a child with her Egyptian maid, Hagar. Now, this was a culturally acceptable thing to do back then, to get an heir. It was a practical solution to a divine problem. And the scripture says Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. He listened. But this human solution backfires. Almost immediately. As soon as Hagar gets pregnant, she starts looking down on Sarai, despising her. And the family just explodes with tension and jealousy. Sarai turns on Abraham, screaming, "My wrong is upon thee." And she treats Hagar so badly that Hagar has no choice but to run away into the wilderness. Out in the desert, an angel finds Hagar. The angel tells her to go back and submit to Sarai, but also gives her a prophecy about the son she's carrying, Ishmael. The prophecy? He will be a wild man, and his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. It's a chilling bit of foreshadowing for centuries of conflict. So Hagar goes back, and Ishmael is born. At 86 years old, Abraham finally gets to hold his own son. It's this moment of incredible joy for an old man who wanted nothing more than an heir. But it's a joy that was born out of a human plan, a moment of doubt, not the original divine promise. And that's the crucial question that just hangs over everything. Abraham has a son. His prayer was answered, right? But since this son came from a moment of human intervention and a lack of faith, we're left with this massive question. Is this the promised one, or is this a tragic complication that's going to echo for generations to come?